which is an enormous difference from any other kind of writing. Which is why the one piece of advice I ever give to a young writer is not to study writing, but to study acting. Because you have to know how an actor works. You have to know what an actor can do. Because that's who you're writing for. That's how your work is going to be brought to life. And so I would advise anybody who is a scriptwriter or a playwright to take some acting classes and to understand the craft of building a performance and what a performer needs to get through a scene. And usually the questions we ask young writers when we conduct a workshop, strangely enough, are the questions that an actor asks when confronted with a script or a scene. We usually say, well, what exactly is the script about? What does the main character want? That's the big question that we ask in a workshop. What does the character want? Well, that's what an actor asks also. An actor has to know what that character wants. They have to know what their character wants scene to scene, and they also have to know what the character wants in the overall arc of the film. We also often in a writing workshop ask, where is the obstacle? If the protagonist wants something, what is the obstacle standing in the way of that desire? Again, an actor always asks that. What's blocking me? What do I have to fight against? So, it's extremely important to understand an actor's need. It's, in a funny way, particularly important in film because increasingly directors don't understand the needs of actors. They used to be quite different, but directors have become more technical and often just let actors do what they do when they come on the set. And don't know how to elicit a performance from somebody who might be in trouble or might be struggling. An actor in the theater, an actor develops a performance for 4 weeks of rehearsal and can struggle and can try out all kinds of things and can finally arrive at what they're doing. In film, an actor has to come on the set and have that performance. And so again, it's extremely important that the writer and the script are there to help that actor find that performance. It's the script that's going to show them. Very often it's not the director. I have written, as I say, some original films. I've also written adaptations. I've adapted novels. And that's a very interesting process because when you're asked to adapt a novel, obviously you read it to decide whether you want to do it. And if you do say yes, you then have to read that novel. I call it a laser read. You read it with laser eyes. You're not interested in the beauty of the writing, the beauty of the characterization, the prose style. You're only looking for what the dramatic line is and what can be turned into a film. And there has to be some kind of dramatic narrative. And sometimes you have to really search to find that in a novel. Because again, writing a film is not about writing. It's about finding a central dramatic narrative that will carry the film. And there are some extraordinary novels that simply don't make good films because they're a different kind of entity. Very often, short stories make wonderful films, which is interesting. It's easier to find. It's easier to find a line that will carry within the confines of 2 hours. It's actually, if you're a young screenwriter, it's actually a very good exercise to take a novel and to try to turn it into a film. That can teach you an enormous amount about finding that dramatic line and about the difference between, as I say, writing and screenwriting. So that's the other piece of advice I always give, which is to take a novel or a short story and just as an exercise, try to turn it into a film script and see what happens. Because again, you do need a central character usually who has a very strong desire, who wants something that can carry that person through the film, and then there are obstacles. And a novel can go off into so many directions that the author's voice can carry the novel sometimes rather than a protagonist that wants certain things. So screenwriting is a very odd thing because it is both private and public. And the public part, after you've written the script, the public part involves a lot of notes from a lot of people. Notes from producers, notes from directors. If you have major actors involved, notes from the actors. Sometimes there are people who have infinite wisdom and know the medium of film far better than you will ever know it. And sometimes they're idiots. And you have to be able to negotiate. You have to be able to negotiate between those two extremes and know the difference. And screenplays are fair game, meaning everybody feels they have the right to comment on it in a way that they possibly would not comment on the other elements of the film. Almost everybody involved with the film would not sit down with the cinematographer and give notes to tell him what he thinks about the way he's shooting the film. But they will as a writer. And you have to be prepared to deal with that. And to deal with that with a certain amount of grace, but also a certain amount of strength. So that's the strange life of the film writer, is the first half when you're alone in that room and you have nobody to answer to but yourself, and the second half when you have everybody to answer to. And you can find yourself in some very peculiar positions because